Tell me your most famous or maybe your favorite guest who came to one of your restaurants.
Sandra Bullock, definitely. And I did propose to her. I told her that I like kids and I don't have any tattoos, but she wasn't ready for that.
Dude, I wanted to cover that. So nightly, you do this every night for 26 years, and as I understand, approximately 9,400 unique messages every night for 365 nights for 25 years. That seems like a lot.
It was a tremendous pain in the butt. Not only was it when I was in the restaurant, it was wherever I was in the world.
You know, we never know the ripple that we're creating with the pebble that's in the water. And there's so many ways that we impact lives that we never know. But I encourage people to continue to be empathetic and supportive and inspiring the folks, because you never know what impact it's going to have on them.
You know, I just want to add, it's hard to grasp that they have lives and they have families and they have problems, and you know, it's real easy just to walk in and they're a blank sheet, and you can't do that. You have to see everybody as a whole microcosm of a family and of happiness and the things that they're going through right now.
Welcome to Unlocking Moves, where we want to cover those key pivotal moments and decision points that really change the lives of successful entrepreneurs and leaders. And I want to hear their stories, because I think we learn them best from stories. And I don't want to hear just your glory story. I want to hear your gory story, because as I like to say, the bigger the shit show, the bigger the lesson. My guest today is one of the most famous, or maybe it's infamous, restaurateurs in Austin, Texas. He's the founder of El Arroyo Mexican restaurant. He's also the creator of the very famous El Arroyo sign, which offers very witty, humorous, and sometimes satirical messages to commuters as they drive into downtown Austin. But Clay, before we get into any of that, I like to hit my guests up with an off-the-wall question or comment to really keep them on their toes, keep my audience on their toes. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. So in 2005, when Harry Potter and Half-Blood Prince came out, you wrote a sign, and I quote, "Dumbledore dies on page 596. We just saved you 12 hours of reading and $29.95, which led to, as I understand, 300 calls before 11 a.m. and from outraged fans. The police even got involved. So my question is, what kind of asshole tells the story of Dumbledore on a sign?
We're trying to get people to read that sign and react positive or negatively. I got death threats. I had people poking me in the chest. It was a shit show. I mean, there were people lined up outside not to eat to come scream at me. I still have people to this day pissed about it.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, any news is good news, right? When you're trying to market and publicize your business. So very well done.
These guys went after me hard, and I had to tell them, you know, it's a jumping spot.
Oh, that's awesome. So as you can tell, my guest today is Clay McPhail. He is the founder of El Arroyo Mexican Restaurant and the creator of the sign. He also is now the partner at 5280 Burger Bar in Austin, Texas. So we're going to get into that a little bit as well. Clay, I can't wait to dive into your story.
I'm here for you.
Let's go, Clay. Awesome. All right. So I do want to start with your story. And I know that you grew up in Tyler, Texas, as I understand it.
I did.
And you ended up going to the University of Texas, and you've been here 55 years in Austin?
Yep. With 7 years up in Denver to start 5280.
Okay. All right. Very good. So here's my question. According to LinkedIn, two questions. First of all, it looks like it took you 7 years to finish at the University of Texas.
7.5.
All right. So I want to hear that story as well. But then also from 1977, when you graduated, you bought El Arroyo in 1987. At some point, I want to understand what you did in those 10 years, because I'm sure that was foundational to what you did at El Arroyo.
Actually, I was in the insurance business for a while. I was an insurance consultant, and we did it for 3 years, I believe, and then we sold it to someone, and then I got into the restaurant business by accident. One of my friends at Lakeview Cafe, Craig Gatewood, said, "I need a fry cook." And I said, "Well, I don't have anything to do, and if you're paying money, I'm coming." So I started fry cooking at Lakeview Cafe in 1982.
Okay.
I think that's right. Yeah, 82. And stayed there, and then became the general manager, and went to Louis on the Lake for a year. And then found out that I was working for somebody that not exactly who I was looking for as a mentor.
Fair enough.
And found out El Arroyo was closed by the landlord, said that El Arroyo is closed and you should open it up. And I said, okay. I remember going to see Doug English. I sat out in his office. He was on a meeting. I sat in his hallway with a yellow pad, and he said, do you have a business plan? And I ripped this page out and I said, I do. And I said, what I thought we'd do the first year, 5th year, and 10th year. And he said, okay, let's do it. I still have that piece of paper.
No kidding.
Yep.
I'd love to see that piece of paper if you don't mind. So just for everyone's edification, Doug English was a former UT football player.
Right.
And he went to NFL for the Lions. Is that right?
For 11 years.
Okay. And you were buddies with him through your time at school?
Yep.
Okay.
I worked at a place called The Bucket. You'd have to be very old to remember The Bucket. It was at 23rd and Pearl. And he was a regular in there.
Okay.
And wherever we got in any physical trouble, we would ask Doug to come over and help us out. He was always there for us.
So you worked at The Bucket. It sounds like you probably spent a lot of time at The Bucket, because I got to ask again, 7.5 years?
And I was almost a sophomore. No, I actually drove a Coke truck in the morning and bartended 3 or 4 nights a week and went to school in the afternoon. So I didn't take a whole lot of hours.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I was on the 5-year program at the University of Arkansas, and I catch grief for that. But 7.5 years is very impressive.
Thank you.
But hey, you worked your way through it. I also worked my way through college, so that's my excuse as well.
Well, I'm sorry I got out.
It's the best time of your life. Why would you ever
Absolutely.
get out?
One of my friend's daughter came into town and said, you're old and, you know a lot. What should I do when I get out of school? And I said, she's sitting there with her parents. And I said, change majors right now. I said, go to your dean. What are you majoring in? She said, plan 2. I said, go to your dean, tell him you're switching to psychology. And her dad was like, what are you talking about? And I said, you don't want to be out here. It's just horrible out here. Stay in school at least 3 more years. And her dad was like, you need to shut up. And he looked at her and said, our deal was 4 years. After that, you can do whatever you want. But 4 years, I'm up.
That's awesome. So, hey, it is college grad season, so I get all kinds of requests for help with their recent college graduate. So my question for you is, first of all, that's some great feedback, and don't get out, come back in. But here's another question. So you spent some time before you ended up buying El Arroyo. What kind of advice would you give to college grads, whether it's you need a job to pay the bills or do something that's foundational to what you want to do with the rest of your life? Tell me a little bit.
Yeah, I had 2 opportunities to do something really special, and I didn't follow through with it. One of them, I tried to get a group of guys to buy the old hotel at the northeast intersection of I-35 and Riverside. It was for sale for $1 million, and I put together some people, and it sits on 4.5 acres. There's no telling what it's worth now.
I'm gonna say 100 probably.
It did have asbestos, and we just couldn't close the deal. And the second thing, I had this idea. There was a councilman here named Robert Barnstone, and I said, and he was a developer and wonderful guy, city councilman. He was going to run for mayor. And I actually took him over and I showed him this area, and I said, I think this is going to be something special. I see big houses in the back and retail in the front, and that was Rainey Street. And he did buy a few of the property, but unfortunately he died very young of a heart attack, and I just let it go. So if I was going to give somebody advice, if you have something, you need to be tenacious about getting your arms around it and building it into something, because it, obviously is built into something fabulous. And there's a couple other ones. Everybody's got stuff. If I had bought this or I wanted to buy this, but those 2 specifically, I worked on and I did some work on it, but I never got across the finish line.
Well, that sounds a lot like take the risk and follow your gut, because those sound like some really great opportunities. I would also suggest this, though. I'm a person that, even though I have things that I might have done differently if I did it again, I try to live with no regrets. I try to know that the reason those deals didn't work out for me is some other reason. Do you have that same type of mentality?
Not at all. I have so many regrets. There's this one girl that.
And don't move stuff. We get myself in trouble for that. All right, here we go. So let's talk about El Arroyo. So we talked a little bit about how you and Doug ended up buying it from the previous owners. Tell me a little bit about, let me start with this. The food was okay. The sign was great. So first of all, I want to give you a chance to defend the food. And second of all, let's talk about the sign.
Totally wrong on the food. Our food, I thought, was fabulous. I could never get tired of it. I had it 26 years. and never got tired of the food.
Well, here's why I asked on the food, because you famously had a sign that says, we're conveniently located to all the nearest hospitals in town.
Right.
So a little self-deprecating you were.
We loved the self-deprecating stuff. Just loved it. We had one sign that said, El Arroyo now enforcing the employees must wash hands rule. I love that stuff. And I don't think it runs anybody off. I don't think anybody honestly believes that we didn't pursue that anyway.
Right, of course. I teased about this food, but let's talk about the sign, because obviously that's what it was most known for. And it sounds like that was really an accident almost. So tell me a little bit about how it came about. And I know you've got some great stories.
If you're just joining us on Unlocking Moves, today's episode is brought to you as usual by HireBetter, the strategic talent partner for growth-minded entrepreneurs everywhere.
So the day before we opened, we were cleaning up out back, huge pile of trash. We had a roll off, and I called Doug to help me put the sign in the trash can. It wouldn't fit. And we looked down and there was a big stack of letters, and I said, let's drag it around front. So we drug it around front, and we put the first sign up the March 1st, 1987.
So before you tell me what that first sign said, let me go back. Obviously, the former owners had a sign. Did they not ever put it up? Or was it?
I think it came from somewhere else. See, the people that own the land, Bob and Mary Ogden, own 60, 70 properties around town. And I think they took it off one of the properties. I don't think it was ever up at the restaurant.
I got you. Okay, so you decided to put some words on the sign on March 1st. What did that sign say? And tell me what happened next.
It said, warning, entering Tex-Mex zone, all traffic must turn. And people were slamming on their brakes and turning, and we get a call, and the police said, normally we'd just come get the sign. We've had so many complaints, you just need to change it right now. So we thought, this sign may be pretty powerful. And so we switched it to something generic. Actually, we were doing a fundraiser for the National Paralysis Foundation the next day. So we put on there, you come in, we're going to give 20% to national paralysis. So but the first sign was, warning, entering Tex-Mex zone, all traffic must turn.
All right, that's awesome. So let me, a couple things. First, I'm going to set the stage. So it's on 5th Street at Kimball. And at the time, was it a two-way street or always a one-way street?
No, always one way.
Okay, so one-way street entering downtown from Mopac or Highway 1, if you're familiar with Austin. And so a couple blocks off of Mopac, right? Everybody who goes to downtown mostly enters on 5th or 1st. And 5th Street is very well-trafficked area. So genius for you to do that.
20 people a day would say, I usually go in on 15th Street, but now I come by the sign.
Just to see what you have.
Just to see what we have.
That's awesome. So let's cover a little bit of the controversy, because I know the first sign had controversy because people were exiting and calling the police.
Slamming on their brakes.
Exactly. So after that, I know there's lots of other interesting signs, some political in nature, perhaps some satirical, as I said. Tell me some of the most maybe controversial signs.
Oh, we put signs up there we knew that people would have a problem with. Some we sat around and said, we're going to get pushback on this. And we knew we would, and rightfully so. And one that pops into my mind is, show me on the doll where El Arroyo touched you. While it's funny to most people, there's a certain segment that do not see the humor in it at all.
Yeah.
And that was one that didn't make noon. We had a few that didn't make noon.
Really? So I assume during the evening you sat around and you guys threw out some ideas. I'm sure you probably had a list of 5 or 10 options at some point. But were there times where you're like, yeah, we just can't do that?
Right. No, many, many times. We had a lot. And I have to say, the guys that are doing the sign now, I feel sorry for, because we went over the line a lot. And these guys can't get near the line anymore. Actually, things are cooling off a little bit, but they've been very careful to stay apolitical, and there were things that we put up there that they would never put up there.
Okay, so you sold the restaurant around 2012. So there's new owners now. So the sign before that was all you, and the sign since then is the new owners.
Well, I did the sign for almost a year after I sold it.
Okay.
And I just got tired of it. 26 years was enough.
Dude, I wanted to cover that. So nightly, you did this every night for 26 years. And as I understand, approximately 9,400 unique messages. I got to tell you, I've got boys that are now older, but we used to do Elf on the Shelf at Christmas where you change the elf's location. Have you ever seen that?
Sure.
You had to change it every night. If you forgot to, you're like, oh crap, what do I do? Because the kid's going to see it again. Every night for 365 nights for 25 years. That seems like a lot.
It was a tremendous pain in the butt. Not only was it when I was in the restaurant, it was wherever I was in the world. I would get a call and said, what do you want on the sign? And I said, well, I hadn't got anything yet. And sometimes I'd make them go get a newspaper and read the headlines. And, you know, a lot of times we'd sit around and say, did anybody hear anything controversial or anything fun on the radio? I mean, somebody had to have done something interesting today.
Right.
And my daughter always gets mad at me. She worked for me for a long time. And she said, you never mention us. So I'm mentioning all the restaurants helped at some point in time. Thank you, Brooke.
Awesome. There you go. So a couple of the ones we mentioned earlier, that the whole Dumbledore reveal was controversial. There's one that said, just a poke. I guess you had a fire one night and the sign said, but not even an act of arson could deter. I'm sorry. The sign said, if you didn't like our service, just say so. Don't burn down the building. And then I like this one. Austin passes bag law. Ugly people must stay inside. And then I remember I didn't drive by there every day, so I didn't know I have the same experience. But one of the ones I remember seeing was Cesar Chavez was for First Street, and at one time it went both ways, and then they made it a one-way street, and the sign said, or vice versa. Because the sign said, "Hey, Cesar Chavez goes both ways."
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we got some calls on that one too, as you can imagine.
I think it's funny. I think we had to have a sense of humor, and our society has lost a lot of our sense of humor, unfortunately.
One lady did call one day and said, I didn't get your sign till I got halfway to Lamar, and I started laughing so hard I hit a parked car. And of course I said, no speaky dingless. I claim no liability whatsoever. She said she plowed straight into the back of it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Let's talk about the rest of the restaurant business, because obviously you sold El Arroyo and you're back in. So I got to ask you, first of all, what do you like the best or your favorite parts about the restaurant business? I'll ask you the counter question. What do you like the least?
The best part is visiting with people and getting to know people. And I've just made some spectacular friends at every restaurant we've had. And we had restaurants, couple in Austin, Round Rock, San Marcos, Dallas, Fort Worth, New Orleans. In every place, I still have good friends that I keep up with from all of those. And there's nothing like getting to know people and making people happy. And if they have a problem, trying to fix it, that's the great stuff. The negative part is it never stops. We were even open Christmas Day this year, and we were open from 5 to 9 Christmas Day. Yeah. And it's just like the sign. The sign never stopped, and we never repeated one, and we never got anything off the internet. And the hard part is just, it's a constant struggle.
Yeah. Well, look, I've been doing this podcast. This is my 54th or so episode. And even that is having some stick-to-itiveness and doing it, but I do it every 2 weeks. And you did that every day, which I can appreciate how challenging that is. And obviously, kudos to you for keeping that going. And I know it probably was a bittersweet when you stopped.
It was. A lot more sweet. I decided to stop doing it a year after I sold. It was, and I'd sometimes wake up at night and go, what do you got put on the sign? Oh yeah, I didn't have to do the sign.
All right, that's awesome. Okay, so now you're doing something different. It's called 5280 Burger Bar.
Right.
And as I understand it, you founded it in Denver. So you moved to Denver for a period, and now you're back. So tell me the story there.
So I didn't know what to do. I kind of had a couple opportunities here, but I really wanted to do something different. And a friend of mine named Don Redlinger in Denver said, I want to open a restaurant. And I thought he was crazy. So I flew up there basically to talk him out of it. And after spending about 5 days, we found a spot. We decided on a gourmet burger place because there wasn't anything like that in Denver. And I came home, and after 44 years, I moved to Denver about 4 weeks later.
Wow.
Picked up and moved. I'd never dreamed I'd move outside the city, much less outside the state, but I enjoyed it. I always knew that I would come back.
Okay, so I was going to ask you why you came back.
Well, my wife, I was dating her at the time, and we got married I actually got married in Steamboat. And she's born and raised here, went to Murkison Doss Anderson. and her brother lives here, and I had 44 years of friends here. We always knew we'd come back. In fact, I didn't think we'd stay 7 years. And then the old El Arroyo location in Northwest Hills came up, and talked to the building owners, actually came to Denver and tried our spots out and thought it'd be a good fit. And so here we are. I'm back, I guess, almost 4 years now.
Wow. I will say 5280 has very good food. And I know I was kind of giving you a little bit of grief with El Arroyo. This one, they're both fantastic, but 5280 has great food. In fact, I think I read somewhere where you guys worked for 3 solid days and tried 50 different recipes for a queso.
Well, yep. Queso and ketchup we spent the longest time on.
Ketchup.
We make our own ketchup from scratch without any high fructose corn syrup or sugar. We use sauteed sweet caramelized chilies and agave nectar.
Wow.
And it was funny. My partner had twin 5-year-olds, and we'd bring them in when we thought we were ready, and they'd go, "That's not queso." And we'd go back to the drawing board. And so we have very healthy and wonderful ketchup.
Wow. So I thought of it too late, but I asked Clay to bring in some queso for our session so we could taste it on air, but I thought of it too late, so I apologize for that. Hey, so speaking of friends, you mentioned your friend going to Denver. We were introduced by our friend Ron Kessler,
Right.
who's one of the solid citizens and gurus here in Austin, Texas. He's also a mentor and coach to many. So he asked me to ask you, who is your top mentor, maybe besides Ron, if he's even in the picture?
Well, Ron is definitely up there, but
You don't have to say that, by the way.
No, I know. I'll say one thing about Ron real quick. People in the city don't know what all he's done for the city. I mean, he's been a part of not only transportation, but he's been a part of the heart of the city in the background with Roy Butler and our recently passed Carol Keaton. I mean, those are some of the ones that come to my mind since I've been here. They're part of the city that people don't know, but they're an unbelievably important part of the city, and it wouldn't be the great place it was without those kind of people.
I love Ron.
No, he's just such an honest, straightforward, fun, smart guy. He's a wonder to be around. He really is.
Awesome. My other question he asked me to ask you is, tell me one restaurant that you love or your favorite restaurant in town besides your own.
You know, it's hard to beat Red Ash. I mean, I have to sell a lot of burgers to get to go there. But once you go, I mean, I think they do a brilliant job. I'm very impressed. I've always been impressed with Red Ash.
There you go. This episode sponsored by Red Ash and 5280 Burger Bar.
And Larry Folds.
All right. So we're at the point of the show where I want to ask you about your unlocking move. Again, that's one or two key pivotal moments or decision points that really change the trajectory of your life or your career. Maybe passing on the land, not passing, but not finalizing the land deal downtown was an unlocking move. Perhaps you see it differently. Tell me what, maybe finding the sign in the back of your lot was an unlocking move.
I think the unlocking move was deciding that I could run El Arroyo with Doug English's support and financial and his brains. He's a very bright guy. And sitting in that hallway and writing down that, and I was going, am I really going to do this? Am I really ready to step out on my own? And I think that was an unlocking moment. And then Doug looked at it and said, okay, let's do it.
Let's stick on that for a moment because a lot of us have that opportunity. We have a failing business that someone asks us to take over or just hands us the keys. We have any number of people we can meet to try to be mentored by them, but few of us do. So you had the guts to follow through. Tell me a little bit about that. What gave you that gut? What gave you the balls to make that happen?
You know, my dad was a nurseryman, and he had his own nursery, and he worked 7 days a week too. He didn't work on Easter. He didn't work on Christmas, but it was kind of built in me that this is what it takes to run a successful business, and this is what it takes to be a man. And I guess I got it from him. And, you know, sometimes I look back and I'm surprised at myself. You know, I'm surprised that the things that I have done, the restaurants we've opened, and, you know, sometimes you can surprise yourself.
I like that. Do it. Sometimes surprise yourself. You have what it takes. Okay. My next question is, I call it the listener's advocate question. And that is, if I've got Clay McPhail here in a one-on-one interview, what would I want Kurt to ask? Because I've got a burning question. The obvious one is, what is your favorite sign? So I'll ask that second. So let me start with, tell me your most famous or maybe your favorite guest who came to one of your restaurants.
Sandra Bullock, definitely.
Okay.
And I did propose to her over that I like kids and I don't have any tattoos. But and she wasn't ready for that.
Okay.
But she was definitely number one. And
How many times did she come in? Was she a regular?
yeah, I mean, she maybe came in 8 times, but
Okay.
she was first class every time. She was so nice to everybody. And we had people that nobody knew. Sissy Spacek used to come in by herself with a red hat on, and she always wanted to sit at the back of the veranda and face the other way. Nobody ever knew it was her.
That's awesome.
And she thanked me one time. That was really special.
Very nice.
We also had Keanu Reeves
Okay.
came in a couple times, big white cowboy hat. He's about this tall, but he was very nice to everyone as well.
Nice. So did you have some people like Sissy who were trying to be, out of the limelight? You had other people that were trying to act like they're out of limelight with a big white cowboy hat and trying to show who they were? Is that some?
Yeah, I don't know that he was really trying to, show who he was, but he was definitely, you couldn't miss him.
You were hiding.
No,
Yeah.
but he was just so nice. And everybody that came up to the table, and we finally went over and kind of blocked him. And everybody said, let's let him eat.
Yeah.
And everybody left him alone after that.
So I got to come back to the other one. I know you're asked probably every day, what's your favorite sign? It's probably like having, who's your favorite kid, but tell me what's your favorite sign?
The favorite one that I did personally was, and this is a tacky one. This is one that didn't make noon. One of our legislators got caught with his aide in Washington. And I put on the sign the next day, our legislators don't use bookmarks. They just spin the pages over. And some of the local guys, the state guys called and didn't like the sign. And I said, it's about Washington. And they said, they don't know. Everybody doesn't know that. So, but I love the one, University of Oklahoma keeping ugly girls out of University of Texas since 1917. There's several of them that stick out, but those are the two that I liked a lot. My personal favorite one, there was a quarterback controversy with Mike Presley and Marty Akins, and Darrell Royal loved Marty Akins. And so the senior year, Mike Presley decided to quit, but his last game, all the players voted him player of the game, even though he didn't play at all. Since then, the players haven't been able to vote. But when Marty Akins ran for governor and didn't do very well, I put on the sign, bad news, Marty. Mike Presley was a better quarterback as well. And I got calls from all over the United States from the players that, knew what it was. And Marty Akins has been nice and never kicked my ass. So, but I thought that was interesting because I got calls from so many people.
Yeah, Doug English backing you up, I'm sure.
I did. I have to say I stood behind him a few times.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So thank you for that. I do have one last question for you. And that is, it's kind of a trick question. The question is, what is one question you never asked and either you wish they would or you're secretly glad that they don't?
A question that I never ask, I guess, is what's the worst sign that you had to change early in the morning? And
So not just before, and it didn't make it past 8 o'clock.
right. Oh, I got a couple of times I got called at my house and literally had to drive up there and take it down.
All right.
I did have one of my favorite stories. The city was going to come get the sign, and I called Will Wynn and didn't really know him. I knew who he
Was
was.
the mayor?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he knew who I was. And he said, oh, I don't want to fight this fight. He said, I'll stick it in my drawer. So he told him not to come pick the sign up. And he called about 3 weeks later and said, 3 city councilmen and the city manager just left my office and your sign has a permanent exclusion from the sign ordinance. So that night, to my detriment, I may or may not have had too many margaritas that night. I put on the sign thinking that it has a permanent exclusion in the sign ordinance. I put Will Win Sucks on it. Went home, got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and said, what in the hell did I do? So I'm down there taking it down. My phone rings. It's Will Win. He goes, big boy. I've already had about 10 phone calls. And I guess he drove by to take a picture of it when I was taking it down. And he said, put it back up there. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I said, I don't know who did that. What vandal put that up here, but I'm taking it down. He goes, no, as your commander in chief, I want it left up there. So hesitantly, I put it up there, and all day long, people would come in and go, he's the best mayor we've ever had. And I go, it was his idea.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, let me pause here for a second because in the prep questionnaire, you put in there something about talking about changing lives. Is there anything you want to cover personally that we can come back talk about?
You know, it's fun. One of the great things about getting older, I mean, there's not very many, it's a very short list, but one of the great things is I had people come back and said, you know what you did for me? You sat me down, and one guy in particular said, I want to open a barber shop, and he worked for me, and we stayed late, and I told him, then you know what you need to do is plan on your opening and then work back from today to when you want to open that shop. And he did it. Now he has several in Colorado. He's got several here. And I'll be honest, I don't remember having that conversation with him, but he actually had one in Westminster next to my 5280 in Westminster. And one of his employees said, Patrick, I think his name's Patrick, would like to talk to you. And I went over there and he said, I don't know if you remember this, but you told me how to get my first store open. And now this is my 16th or whatever it was.
Wow, and that's Finley's.
Yeah.
Wow. What a great story.
And I have somebody else that I encouraged to, she was going to Russia and she was going to go with all her sorority sisters. And I made her pledge that she wouldn't talk to Americans. She wouldn't go to American bars. She would engulf herself in the society and in the culture of Russia. And she did. She ended up changing her major to Russia and became the head buyer for Harrods for all of Russia. And she used to bring her kids when they were young into the restaurant and say, this is the guy that put me in that direction. And that's some of the best stuff you can have in life right there.
That's awesome. You know, we never know the ripple that we're creating with the pebble that's in the water. And there's so many ways that we impact lives that we never know. But I encourage people to continue to be empathetic and supportive and inspiring the folks, because you never know what impact that's going to have on them. Thank you for sharing.
You bet. You know, I'll just want to add, you walk into a restaurant and you see the servers and they're servers, or you walk into Nordstrom's and the people waiting on it, and it's hard to grasp that they have lives and they have families and they have problems, and you know, it's real easy just to walk in and they're a blank sheet, and you can't do that. You have to see everybody as a whole microcosm of a family and of happiness and the things that they're going through right now.
Just as a human.
Yep.
Yeah, man, that's so powerful, and treating people as you'd want to be treated, but also just as a human being and understanding they have their own challenges.
You know, it's easy to walk into a Sunday school and do that, but when you walk into Red Ash, or you walk into any restaurant or any store, it's easy to not see that in the people that work there,
Man,
for some reason.
I just appreciate that reminder, Clay. It's a powerful reminder.
Thanks.
Well, on that note, we're going to wrap this puppy up, Clay. I really invite people to go like and subscribe Unlocking Moves wherever you consume your podcast, whether it's Apple, Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube. And thank you so much for joining me, Clay. It's been a blast.
It's really been a lot of fun. I'm so glad I came.
Awesome. If you're an entrepreneur and you think you might have outgrown a member of your team, or maybe you've got a mic, as we talked about in Who's Your Mic, check out this quiz at who'syourmic.com/quiz. That's who'syourmic.com/quiz.